Shall.
Let's shall.
Let's shall.
Mediums. We're shalling.
Are we shalling?
Now.
Oh, no.
Yes, totally.
Oh, no.
This is totally happening. Mediums, welcome to The Writer's Journey. I'm your host, Lauren Moore, and with me is the radiant Kalene Williams. We're two authors on a journey to learn more about writing with you, the audience, so thank you for joining us. Tonight, we've got our special friend and special guest, Ellen the Cutter Campbell. She is here with her doggos, whom we love.
Dexter said hi. Go away.
Hi, Dexter. Woof, woof.
He's down there, I swear.
Yay, we love having Dexter on. We're going to do things a little differently tonight. We wanted to kind of have a more chillax, relaxed episode tonight. A little bit more like English class.
But way more fun.
But lots of fun. Yeah. Because we're going to look at Harry Potter. And who doesn't love a good Harry Potter novel? Or all 7 of them, right?
All 7, yeah.
And also, since I missed Monday story time, which my voice is still a little, but it'll do. I'm going to be reading passages for you people find people from Harry Potter.
All episode long, folks. She's going to read passages, and then we're going to kind of dig in and see what tips we can pull out of them for us as authors and editors. We're going to look for some no-nos for us as writers and editors, and some do-dos for us as writers and editors. Right from J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So I think it's going to be a fun episode. What do you ladies think?
I think it's going to be fun. Don't be a muggle. It's going to be fun.
Looking forward to some narration.
Nathan says, English class, I'm out. Oh,
hey, Nathan.
Fun. Oh,
stay for the narration.
What are we going to do? But Jay is in. He says, the heart, the voice, and the cutter. Sweet.
Aww.
Yes. And the ice cream, right? We hope the ice cream is there.
All the ice cream.
All right. So the first passage we're going to look at is a few chapters in. Kalene is going to pull it up for us, and she's going to read it for us. And for you guys in the audience, whether you are live or listening to this later, this passage is from still pretty early on in the book when the main character, Harry Potter, he's going from the natural, normal world that we all recognize, all know and love, but he's going to go into the magical world. So the author Rowling, she's taking us into a completely new world that we've never seen before, with elements that we recognize, but new things too. And she's got to introduce to us new characters, a new conflict, and a new setting. And the question is, how does she do it? Is she just telling us about it? Is she dropping giant paragraphs that we call info dumps, right? Where she tells us who the new characters are, what the conflict is all about, what the setting is, or does she do it in more subtle ways? So as Kalene reads, try to pay attention to see how does she introduce to us the new setting, the new characters, and if conflict is in that passage too, you can look for that as well. All right, Kalene, take it away.
All right, here we go. The countryside, now flying past the window, was becoming wilder. The neat fields had gone. Now there were woods, twisting rivers, and dark green hills. There was a knock on the door of their compartment, and the round-faced boy Harry had passed on a platform 9 3/4 came in. He looked tearful. "Sorry," he said, "but have you seen a toad at all?" When they shook their heads, he wailed, "I've lost him. He keeps getting away from me." "He'll turn up," said Harry. "Yes," said the boy miserably. "Well, if you see him..." He left. "Don't know why he's so bothered," said Ron. "If I'd brought a toad, I'd lose it as quick as I could. Mind you, I brought scabbers, so I can't talk." The rat was still snoozing on Ron's lap. "He might have died, and you wouldn't know the difference," said Ron in disgust. "I tried to turn him yellow yesterday to make him more interesting, but that spell didn't work. I'll show you, look!" He rummaged around in his trunk and pulled out a very battered-looking wand. It was chipped in places, and something white was glinting at the end. Unicorn hairs nearly poking out. Anyway, he had just raised his wand when the compartment door slid open again. The toadless boy was back, but this time he had a girl with him. She was already wearing her new Hogwarts robes. Has anyone seen a toad? Neville's lost one, she said. She had a bossy sort of voice. Lots of bushy brown hair and rather large front teeth. We've already told him we haven't seen it, said Ron, but the girl wasn't listening. She was looking at the wand in his hand. Oh, are you doing magic? Let's see it then. She sat down. Ron looked taken aback. All right. He cleared his throat. Sunshine, daisies, buttermellow. Turn this stupid fat rat yellow. He waved his wand, but nothing happened. Scabbard stayed gray and fast asleep. Are you sure that's a real spell? Said the girl. Well, it's not very good, is it? I've tried a few simple spells just for practice, and it's all worked for me. Nobody in my family's magic at all. It was ever such a surprise when I got my letter, but I was ever so pleased, of course. I mean, it's the very best school of witchcraft there is, I've heard. I've learned all our course books by heart, of course. I just hope it will be enough. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. Who are you? She said all this very fast. Harry looked at Ron and was relieved to see by his stunned face that he hadn't heard all the course books by heart either. I'm Ron Weasley, he muttered. Harry Potter, said Harry. Are you really? Said Hermione. I know all about you, of course. I got a few extra books for background reading, and you're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and great wizarding events of the 20th century. Am I? Said Harry, feeling dazed. Goodness, didn't you know? I'd have found out everything I could if it was me, said Hermione. Do either of you know what house you'll be in? I've been asking around, and I hope I'm in Gryffindor. It sounds by far the best. I hear Dumbledore himself was in it, but I suppose Ravenclaw wouldn't be too bad. Anyway, we'd better go and look for Neville's toad. You two had better change, you know. I expect we'll be there soon. And she left, taking the toadless boy with her.
Yay, excellent.
I hope y'all don't mind my scratchy healing throat.
Oh, it sounded great. You brought those characters to life. I love it.
Yeah, it was good.
All right, so we got the main characters in the series are right here in this one early scene, and we meet for the first time. Well, he's recently met Ron, and we also meet Hermione and Neville pretty early on. And what can you tell about Hermione right from that passage?
I mean, she's got a lot to say. She's going to say it. She's not going to wait for anyone to ask, or even if she doesn't even care if anyone's listening, she's just going to say it.
She's a Buttinsky.
Yeah.
She's what?
She's a Buttinsky.
She's a Buttinsky. Why do you say that?
She butts into everything.
She does, and she's got her books, right? She's read about Harry Potter already in her books that she's brought along, so we know that she's nerdy. We know that she reads up, but we know that she's the type of person who's got all the facts, and she's wants to jump in and tell you that she knows them, right?
Overachiever.
Overachiever, yeah, maybe a little familiar. I don't know, but does the narrator ever come out and tell you? Now, Hermione was a very smart girl.
She was a bit of an overachiever. She had all of her books upon her person, cloaked around her. No, all of that in the dialogue, just with her rambling on of things that are of interest to her.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just her showing off. Tells us everything that we need to know about her, or gives us a good idea, a good handle on who her character is.
Right. There's no, like, in that dialogue right there. That
you have to excuse me for 1 second. I'm sorry.
Dialogue didn't last long. Not much happened in it. But from what we saw, we could tell that she's smart. She's prepared. It's shown in the dialogue. It's in the words that she uses. Jay says she's precocious. That's exactly right. She's a young kid. All these kids on the train are, quite young. And yet she's done all this preparing all on her own. So by the things that she does, the things that she says and how she says it, and also the way that the way the other characters react around her, we start to figure out who she is as a person. All of this is done without the narrator coming out and telling us, which is awesome. We love that. And why is that a fun experience for readers?
Well, you can immerse yourself in the character and in exactly what's going on with the story itself. And You know, a lot of people do also, I want to point this out, you know, she does have, you know, he said, she said, he muttered, he left. You know, she has a lot of those very abrupt stagings, I guess you could say.
Dialogue tags.
Thank you, dialogue tags. And really short action beats. You know, we're always trying to come up with these really intricate action beats, but sometimes he left can work just as well, especially given where you want your focus to be.
Can you pull that up on the screen?
Oh, yeah.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that about the dialogue tags, because I keep on seeing this great debate online, Ellen, you probably have seen it too, where people talk about dialogue tags and they ask, can I say, use another dialogue tag other than said, right? There seems to be two camps. One camp says dialogue tags should be invisible, make them as small as possible, try to delete them as much as possible, and if you must use them, only use said. And then other people are on the other camp and they're like, no, I want to use a range of words, right? I want to pull out my thesaurus and have people exclaim and comment and reply and ask and criticize or, you know, be shrill, I don't know, but have a very specific dialogue tag. So have you seen that, Ellen?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that anybody that takes a hard line on anything, especially when you're talking about English and writing and anything that's creative, taking a hard line is stupid, and it just makes you kind of narrow-minded and just pinpoint focused on the wrong things. I don't have any problem with non-standard dialogue tags. You know, if somebody wants to expostulate or, you know, whatever, that's fine. My whole thing is don't use them if you don't need them.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's exactly like here. Said the boy miserably. Said Ron. Said Ron in disgust. She said Ron, but the girl wasn't listening. You know, they're in there, but it's just enough to keep the dialogue going, especially in this passage right here, because that's mainly what's going on is dialogue. It's just helping the dialogue to continue. Right.
They shouldn't draw attention to themselves. You know, that's a good point. Nothing should kind of jolt the reader out of the experience. But look, Rowling is not afraid to use adverbs, right?
There's no horrible law against adverbs either. Just don't abuse adverbs. It's just like anything else, moderation. As far as adverbs go.
All the words are on the table. It's all how you arrange them.
And then you also have to stop and consider that this book was written for 11-year-olds.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, so that is definitely another thing to take into account. How big of a range, you know, of people do you want to reach? If you want to reach adults, but you also want to reach, you know, those middle schooler or elementary schools, you're gonna have to tone down the verbiage. You know, if they stop and read, you know, a 7-syllable word, their brain's gonna explode.
Depends on the kid, but yeah.
Well, I mean, generally speaking.
Yeah, but she didn't write this with an adult audience in mind ever. This was always written for children until it blew up. But her whole theory all the way along was, I'm going to write something that Harry's going to grow up with these kids. Every year he'll be a year older, just like they are.
Right.
So with the readers. So that's why it evolved this way. Unlike with a lot of kids' books and series that you see where the kids never get any older.
Yeah, as an English teacher, I had a lot of students come up to me and tell me that Harry Potter is what got them reading in the first place. They did not see themselves as readers before Harry Potter, but they loved it so much they just couldn't put the book down. And one notable thing about this book when it first came out is a lot of publishers did not want to publish it because it was so long. And yet you have 7th graders, you've got 5th graders, you've got, you know, and then people all the way up in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and older who love this book and read it from cover to cover in a day or two. Sorry, Jay said, take my...
Oh, no, I already got it. I got it.
Oh. Okay, I was like, Jay's face isn't on the screen. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, now, one of the reasons why I pulled out this passage is because as a new author, one of the things I struggle with is introducing new characters and introducing the way they look to the reader. right? I don't want to go overboard and give too much description, particularly when I'm doing it with some characters and not others. And yet I want to give a couple of visual cues to my reader to let them imagine something. I want to spark imagination. So, and I love the way she used just a few words to show a key new character, to show Hermione. When Hermione comes in, we get this passage. It says, the toadless boy was back, but this time he had a girl with him. She was already wearing her new Hogwarts robes. Just from that, we already know something about it. Mm-hmm. Has anyone seen a toad? Neville's lost one, she said. She had a bossy sort of voice, lots of bushy brown hair, and rather large front teeth. That's it, right?
In and out.
One sentence, yeah, in and out. But we're getting her character, we're getting her personality from what she does, from what she says, and your imagination pictures it all, just from bushy brown hair and rather large front teeth. That's all we need. And now she's moving on to something else. So does the reader.
You bringing that back up actually just made me realize something. So she only ever mentioned that she had a bossy sort of voice once. One time. When she very first spoke, and she never said her brown hair, her teeth, it's just that one time, that one sentence. And then from then on, through this whole thing, you never hear about her hair, you never hear about her teeth, you never hear about the sound of her voice. Because it's already been stated and implanted in the brain mass. And since, especially with this, she's so quick with the dialogue, with the action beats, very little going about on narration. You don't lose that. You don't lose the sound and that momentum of that character.
Right. Once you got bossy, then you can hear that in your imaginative ear, in your brain, and it sticks with you as you're reading it to yourself. Love that.
All right.
So that there's a little doo-doo for you as an author, is to think about your character, what their essential core personality is, and how can you say that in just a few words. For Jim Butcher, he comes up with 3 main words to describe each of his main characters in the Harry Dresden Files, and he repeats them kind of throughout his books. And he only needs to do it, once or twice in a novel to kind of remind the reader, to cue them in, and then it's cued in with their imagination, and they keep it for the rest of the book. All right, we're ready for another passage.
Let me carry on to number 2.
Yeah, so in this section, we're going to meet the villains. We're going to be introduced to the conflict. So again, the question is to the viewers in chat and to the audience, as Kalene reads, think about how she introduces the conflict and the antagonists to you, the reader.
All right, away we go. Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not in it, said Ron. He threw his wand back into his trunk. Stupid spell. George gave it to me, but he knew it was a dud. What house are your brothers in? Asked Harry. Gryffindor, said Ron. Gloom seemed to be settling on him again. Mom and Dad were in it, too. I don't know what they'll say if I'm not. I don't suppose Ravenclaw would be too bad, but I imagine if they put me in Slytherin. That's the house you-know-who was in. Yeah, said Ron. He flopped back into his seat, looking depressed. Blah. I think the ends of the Scabbers' whiskers are a bit lighter, said Harry, trying to take Ron's minds off houses. So, what do your oldest brothers do now that they've left anyway? Harry was wondering what a wizard did once he finished school. Charlie's in Romania, studying dragons, and Bill's in Africa doing something for Gringotts, said Ron. Did you hear about Gringotts? It's been all over the Daily Prophet. But I don't suppose you get that with the Muggles. Someone tried to rob a high-security vault. Harry stared. Really? What happened to them? Nothing. That's why it's such big news. They haven't been caught. My dad says it must have been a powerful dark wizard to get round Gringotts, but they don't think they took anything. That's what's odd. Of course, everyone gets scared when something like this happens in case you know who's behind it. Harry turned this news over in his mind. He was starting to get a prickle of fear every time you-know-who was mentioned. He supposed this was all part of entering the magical world, but it had been a lot more comfortable saying Voldemort without worrying. What's your Quidditch team? Ron asked. I don't know any, Harry confessed. What? Ron looked dumbfounded. Oh, you wait. It's the best game in the world. And he was off, explaining all about the 4 balls and the positions of the 7 players, describing famous games he'd been to with his brothers, and the broomstick he'd like to get if he had the money. He was just taking Harry through the finer points of the game when the compartment door slid open yet again. But it wasn't Neville the Toadless Boy, or Hermione Granger this time. 3 boys entered, and Harry recognized the middle one at once. It was the pale boy from Madame Malkin's robe shop. She was looking at Harry with a lot more interest than he'd shown back in Diagon Alley. Is it true? He said. They're saying all down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment. So it's you, is it? Yes, said Harry. He was looking at the other boys. Both of them were thickest and looked extremely mean. Standing on either side of the pale boy, they looked like bodyguards. Oh, this is Crabbe and this is Goyle, said the pale boy carelessly, noticing where Harry was looking. My name's Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. Ron gave a slight cough, which might have been hiding a snigger. Draco Malfoy looked at him. Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. My father told me all about the Weasleys have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford. He turned back to Harry. You'll soon find out some wizarding families are much better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there. He held out his hand to shake Harry's, but Harry didn't take it. I think I can tell who the wrong sort are for myself, thanks, he said coolly. Draco Malfoy didn't go red, but a pink tinge appeared in his pale cheeks. I'd be careful if I were you, Potter, he said slowly. Unless you're a bit politer, you'll go the same way as your parents. They didn't know what was good for them either. You hang around with riffraff like the Weasleys and that Hagrid, and it'll rub off on you. Both Harry and Ron stood up. Say that again, said Ron. His face as red as his hair. Oh, you're going to fight us, are you? Malfoy sneered. Unless you get out now, said Harry more bravely than he felt, because Crabbe and Goyle were a lot bigger than him or Ron. But we don't feel like leaving, do we, boys? We've been eating all our food and you still seem to have some. Goyle reached toward the chocolate frogs next to Ron. Ron leapt forward, but before he'd so much as touched Goyle, Goyle let out a horrible yell. Scabbers the rat was hanging off his finger, sharp little teeth sunk deep into Goyle's knuckle. Crabbe and Malfoy backed away as Goyle swung Scabbers round and round, howling, and when Scabbers finally flew off and hit the window, all 3 of them disappeared at once. Perhaps they thought there were more rats lurking among the sweets, or perhaps they'd heard footsteps, because a second later, Hermione Granger came in. What has been going on? She said, looking at the sweets all over the floor, and Ron picking up Scabbers by his tail.
That's good. Yay! All right, so who's the antagonist? What is the conflict we're being introduced to here?
Draco and Harry. Good versus evil.
Yep. We hear about Voldemort and Draco kind of in the same time. And what is Harry's reaction to Voldemort? We only get like little bits and clues about him, but it's enough that Harry's reacting and the reader can start to pick up on those clues.
Well, when they when Ron is terrified of Voldemort, or when Harry says Voldemort's name and Ron is like, oh my God, he said his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Harry learns that there's something to be afraid of.
All right. There's a character interaction there between Harry and Ron that kind of gives the reader a clue that this guy's bad. Okay, what else?
But I want to add, because he almost says his name again, so it's extremely subtle, but it goes with his character as, you progress through all of the books. He's terrified, but he's not afraid to, go against, the rules, I guess you could say, even though he knows I'm not supposed to say, whose name, he's still right. Who, it's not that he's careless, but
he doesn't have the inborn fear. He wasn't brought up to be afraid of him.
Yeah.
So we're getting like the outsider's perspective on who this big bad villain guy is. And the reader's an outsider too, right?
Right.
We don't know who Voldemort is. We don't know what the big deal is. We're figuring all that out now, and Harry's taking us along for the ride.
Exactly.
Right? So one way we're starting to pick up on the clue that this is a bad guy is by the way the characters react to each other. Another is the things that they're saying about Voldemort. And then the third is that one little line that says the prickle of fear. Where is that? Harry turned this news over in his mind. He was starting to get a prickle of fear every time "you know who" was mentioned. He didn't have that before, right? But he has that now. So the reason I pulled that out is because that's an internal reflection right there. He was starting to get a prickle of fear every time "you know who" was mentioned. So in our novels, when we write, we want to have different kinds of sentences. One kind is action sentences, things that people do. Another kind is dialogue, which we've been talking about a lot so far. Description is a third kind of sentence where we're describing what something looks like, what something smells like, feels like, tastes like, any of that. But another is internal reflection. That's a kind of sentence that some of us forget, but including that can add a lot more. If we were to take that sentence out of the paragraph, it just wouldn't have the same impact. And then other authors of us, we swing too far to the other side. We have a lot of internal reflection and not a lot of, description or action. So having a balance of those different kinds of sentences can make your writing more colorful. All right. Oh, yes. Yeah. Now, where does Draco get introduced?
Finding Draco.
Top of this page.
There we go. Yep.
And what can we tell about him right from the start? What kind of person is he like?
He's definitely full of himself.
Yes. What kinds of things does he put down? Does he denigrate? And
well, he definitely the rich people. Like, I stand by my family. You should know exactly who I am because this is my name. My name is exactly who I am. You should bow down.
All right. So he's saying that he's better, and his family's better than other people, okay? But that's something a lot of us don't like, is this idea that there are classes, right? There are people who just innately think they're better than everyone else, and the rest of us are like plebeians compared to them. So as a reader, we're like, "Ooh, there's a bad guy right there." What else does he pick on?
Definitely Ron, and I like how she does a double whammy with this. If I can find it as I'm rambling on, he insults Ron. It's like, I've heard all about the Weasleys. Their freckled skin, red hair, more children than they can afford. You are simultaneously learning about Ron and his life and his family, who they might be, while you are also, getting an emotional reaction, for, this, jerk face, right? It's just like, geez, why would you just come in and just do that to someone's face like that? Like, who the heck are you? So she simultaneously is, showing who this Draco is, while also giving, more world building information, of Ron, without being, Ron came from a very large family. They all had red hair and freckles, and they were very poor. You get that just through him being a jerk.
I love that. Yeah, it's 2 for the price of 1, right? In one sentence, she's giving us Ron's background, and also she's putting us on his side. Kalene, your mic is.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Testing. How's my mic? I don't know. I can't tell if it's wrong or not.
Yeah, but all of us have been in that place where we felt awkward. We felt like we looked awkward. We're self-conscious. So now we're kind of siding with Ron because we don't want to be picked on for those things either. But also kids, right? Who doesn't love kids? Well, some people don't. Yeah. But kids, we want to protect kids. We want to love kids. And here's this Draco Malfoy saying that some people have too big families and shouldn't have so many kids. Like, that's kind of a personal attack for young people, kids reading this book. Okay, so we're getting on the side of Harry Potter, and we're definitely understanding that Draco's a bad guy. And then in this initial conflict between, Harry first stands up to the bully. How does he do in his confronting the antagonist? What does he do?
Well, he doesn't take his shit. Excuse the
Yeah.
So
He does it.
But and Harry, he's
got all that practice from Dudley.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he's been spit on his whole life, and Ron is trying to stand up, but he's just kind of still meek, and Harry's just like, nah, I ain't going for it.
Right. He stands up to him, which is what we want to see in a hero. But does he defeat the villain?
Actually, the rat defeats the villain.
Right. The rat does, and Hermione. So he's saved by the rat and the girl. Right? Harry Potter is not the one who's saving anyone yet, right? This is still early on in the book. But he does have the courage to stand up to him, even though he might have been about to get a beating. I don't know. We don't know. But the rat saves the day. So early on in the book, our main character, he's got those heroic qualities, but he's still got a long way to go to actually defeat the villain. But he's on his way.
Alrighty. Before we do the next one, I'm gonna stop sharing that. We do have a little sponsor read. I'm gonna take a break for that. All right. So this week's book spotlight is on Learn How to Write a Novel by reading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by Clark Chamberlain and Scott King. It's a real book, y'all. We totally did this on purpose. Learning how to write a novel is hard, but doing so by studying one of the best-selling, most beloved novels of all time makes it a lot easier. In this book, authors and former college professors Scott King and Clark Chamberlain will teach you how to write a novel using Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone as their study guide and example. Each chapter ends with a collection of takeaways. To make everything easier to remember and reference, they are reorganized at the end of the book to serve as the perfect guide for helping you write your novel. Some of the topics covered in this book include 3-act structure, character arcs, world building, creating conflict, layering mysteries, character development, character voice, author voice, active versus passive characters, crafting descriptions. Delve into a deep critical analysis of what makes Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone so special, and use the techniques uncovered to craft your own story. Ba-dong-bong.
Finally, yeah, Doom.
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 Oh, and also, if you want to read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, you can click this delicious little Amazon linky book thing and go get it yourself. If, there's like how many billions of people on the planet, it's bound to be someone out there who hasn't read it.
You think?
Probably.
Nah, surely not.
And to all the audience out there, we've made a little shift on the writer's journey with the books. We had book sponsors in the past, but what we've been trying to do with this book spotlight deal is to pick books that we think you would be interested in reading, like tonight, like right now. So we're picking books that kind of match the episode, and that's what we're using. They're not sending us money for it. We are using affiliate links. So if you do click that link and you buy things on Amazon, then Amazon sends us some pennies for the fact that we sent someone to Amazon. So that's where the funding for the show is coming in, just from the affiliate link. That's it. It's not like people are sending us money for this at all. We're just trying to ask ourselves, hey, what would our audience, what would our audience want to read tonight, and what makes sense with the episode? And that's where Book Spotlight is. Yeah.
J. Cliff, sorry.
What to say? Oh, I can't wait to see who sponsors next week's show. 50 Shades of Grey.
Spicy. All right, back to wholesome fun. Here we go. See if I can find my application again. All right. Shall we carry on forth, tally-ho?
Sure.
All right.
Of Doom.
Of Doom. A voice echoed through the train. We'll be reaching Hogwarts in 5 minutes' time. Please leave your luggage on the train. It will be taken to the school separately. Harry's stomach lurched with nerves, and Ron, he saw, looked pale under his freckles. They crammed their pockets with the last of the sweets and joined the crowd thronging the corridor. The train slowed right down and finally stopped. People pushed their way toward the door and out onto a teeny, dark platform. Harry shivered in the cold night air. Then a lamp came bobbing over the heads of the students, and Harry heard a familiar voice. Farisiers! Farisiers! Over here! All right there, Harry? Hagrid's big, hairy face beamed over a sea of heads. Come on, follow me. Any more Farisiers? Mind your step now, Farisiers, follow me. Slipping and stumbling, they followed Hagrid down what seemed to be a steep, narrow path. It was so dark on either side of them that Harry thought there must be thick trees there. Nobody spoke much. Neville, the boy who kept losing his toad, sniffed once or twice. You'll get your first sight of Hogwarts in a sec. God, this is going to be fun. Hagrid called over his shoulder. Just round this bend here. There was a loud, ooh. The narrow path had opened suddenly onto the edge of a great black lake. Perched atop a high mountain on the other side, its windows sparkling in the starry sky, was a vast castle with many turrets and towers. No more'n 4 to a boat, Hagrid called, pointing to a fleet of little boats sitting in the water by the shore. Harry and Ron were followed into their boat by Neville and Hermione. Everyone in? Shouted Hagrid, who had a boat to himself. Right then, forward! And the fleet of little boats moved off all at once, gliding across the lake, which was as smooth as glass. Everyone was silent, staring up at the great castle overhead. It towered over them as they sailed nearer and nearer to the cliff on which it stood. Heads down! Yelled Hagrid as the first boats reached the cliff. They all bent their heads, and the little boats carried them through a curtain of ivory that hid a wide opening in the cliff face. They were carried along a dark channel, which seemed to be taking them right underneath the castle, until they reached a kind of underground harbor, where they clambered out onto rocks and pebbles. Oi, you there! Is this your toad? Said Hagrid, who was checking the boats as people climbed out of them. Trevor! Cried Neville blissfully, holding out his hands. Then they clambered up a passageway in the rock after Hagrid's lamp, coming out at last onto smooth, damp grass right in the shadow of the castle. They walked up a flight of stone steps and crowded around the huge oak front door. Everyone here? You there, still got your toad? Hagrid raised a gigantic fist and knocked 3 times on the castle door. Oh, Hagrid's fun. I need to practice that one, though.
That was great. Okay, so here again, we're at a magical castle, right? Have any of you been to a magical castle before? Anyone? No? No one?
My dreams.
Harry Potter in Orlando.
That's magical. That counts. All right, well, I haven't been to a magical castle before. So Rowling, she's got a lot of work, right, to get me to imagine this because I've never been there. But even with just a few short sentences, she takes me there. And that's why I pulled out this passage. Is she's not describing every single detail about the castle, right? She's not telling us about all of its turrets. She's not telling us about its walls and all the windows and the statues. She's not giving every little single detail, but just in a few sentences, in a few words, she paints a whole picture and our imaginations can kind of fill in the rest. Ellen, what do you think?
What do I think? I think a lot of people now kind of snark about her and say she's not really that good and she didn't do anything that special and her books are toxic and they're already saying that, she should have been more inclusive. She should have done this. She should have done that. And I spent too much time on the internet today looking at it. No, I think she did a beautiful job. I mean, she sucks you in, she draws you in, she lets you paint the picture in your own mind. She gives you the outline and some of the details, and your mind, your imagination fills in the colors, and she's pulled you right into the story. I mean, you're there with Harry and Ron seeing Hogwarts for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how this whole passage right here, we've seen Harry, we've seen Ron, we've seen Draco, we've seen Hermione, we've seen all of these kids in the train and their personalities.
And they're all different.
And they're all different. And now it's it's Hagrid's time. You know, we get an even, you know, because we've met him earlier on, but in this one, it's now he's in his like realm, and he has his own unique way of speaking, and she just, I mean, she goes all out, you know, first years. I mean, come on now. But she's, I mean, also with that, because I know, like with accents, we've said before, you need to be careful with accents. You can't put so much that it makes it difficult for, you know, the reader to even decipher. You know, so she just picks out, you know, a few of those things that will get it across. You know, Yale, get your first sight, oh Hogwarts in a sec. You know, even on a first time read, because I had not read this passage before I read it just now. You know,
I read the
I could get through it. You know, because it isn't, you know, a bunch of letters trying to make the pronunciation of what it sounds like. It's taking what the words are and just, you know, smash them together. Anyway,
and she's very consistent with it through 7 books.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So this setting is to last through novels, right? And in just a few sentences, she introduces us to the entire setting right here. And we know for a fact, too, that this place is magical, and she gives us the proof of that in just a moment. But listen to the sentences she uses to paint the whole picture. What are the words that she uses? The narrow path had opened suddenly onto the edge of a great black lake. Perched atop a high mountain on the other side, its windows sparkling in the starry sky, was a vast castle with many turrets and towers.
You know, and right there, she lets you paint your own castle. You know, she doesn't say the 4 towers facing north, south, east, and west, you know, and the light in the top corner was on, and, you know, the great big opening with the ladder and the this and the, you know, she's just castle, turrets, towers, edge of a lake, giant mountain, go.
And that also did not box her in later, because she could make the castle as big as she needed. She could put as many things in it as she needed, because she never said it had 47 rooms and was painted green in 3 of them, and the stairs went north and south. You know, she didn't do all that.
Right. And the reason we're saying this is because we've read a lot of manuscripts where
they had 47 rooms. They were all painted green, and the stairs were north and south.
Right. We get exact, precise details, which kind of force your imagination to picture exactly what the author is picturing in excruciating detail. We don't need that.
Yeah, especially like with like the north and south thing. Like, I am not north south savvy. I know where west is because I know what direction, you know, the freeway is going to hit west. But if someone's like to the north, you know, this was there, and then if you turned east, you turned west and back to, I'm confused now. Like, I'm already confused. It's like I have to spend a lot of time to really figure out how all those are piecing together. So, I mean, I'm not saying don't use north and south, but
so you just stop the reader, because they have to figure out what you're saying and try and interpret that and stick it back in your story. When they were just flowing along, and all of a sudden you booted them out while they tried to work out your map instead of creating their own.
All right. Claire Vaccaro says, one of the superpowers of J.K. Rowling is she uses simple language to describe great things. She's a classic example of trusting the reader. So what are some no-nos and do-dos we can pull out from this passage?
Well, have faith in your reader. Give your reader enough credit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't insult the reader by telling them too much or going overboard. And I say that all the time. Don't insult your reader.
Okay, so don't give precise, exact, and excruciating detail of what exactly the castle's like. Instead, you can give kind of broad strokes description. Another do-do that I like from this passage is she's got some power words in her strong verbs that are doing a whole lot of work for making the castle come alive. Her narrow path opened. The castle is perched on a mountain. The windows are sparkling. That's a gerund. We've got the fleet of boats sitting on the water, moving off at once, gliding across the lake. Everyone's staring up inside the castle. It's towering over them as they sail nearer and nearer on the cliff on which it stood. Okay, so we've got all these great verbs that are kind of carrying the description for us. Any other no-nos or do-dos that you see from this passage?
I should have studied the passage.
Oh.
I'm just here to read, man. No, I'm kidding.
How do we know that the castle is magical? What magical thing happens right at the end of the chapter that's like, oh, that's so wonderful. I'm so happy that happened. And it happened right at the castle, right before they got to the castle. Right at the bottom of the page.
Maybe I missed it.
Yeah.
I read it and I think I missed it.
Neville gets his toad back.
Oh, so you're not talking literal magic. Okay. So but what I liked about that,
not literal, but in the whole chapter before, this toad's been missing and Neville's been in tears and it's been a conflict for this side character. And then boom, the toad appears right before they get into the castle and it's wonderful and it saves the day and it's a nice little like resolution to a conflict for the reader before we get into the next chapter.
And yeah, bringing that up. I don't remember what episode we were talking about it, but side like mini arcs or side things that happen. This whole thing was happening during the whole train scene. He's trying to find his toad, while we're learning about Harry and Ron and all of that. And it's completed by the time they get to the castle. So that's how you can kind of tie in, some side. What word am I going for here? Words of the things of stuff.
Side plots?
Conflicts. You can tie in minor conflicts like this. It has nothing to do with Harry or Ron or Voldemort or what's going to be happening. This kid just really wants his toad back. And that is a perfect example of how you can begin, flesh out, tie in, and conclude rather a minor thing I said before because my brain just died.
Bring it all together.
Yep.
End of the chapter before you move on to the next one. Yeah, that's good. All right, Ellen had some really awesome passage too.
Okay, I'm going to scroll really fast, guys. All right, here we go. All right, so this one from Ellen. See if I can do this. As I'm sure y'all can hear, my voice is definitely starting to go out, but I'm going to try my best for you. All right. Fancy seeing you here, Professor McGonagall. No, it's not going to do it, but I'm going to try. He turned to smile at the tabby, but it had gone. Instead, he was smiling at a rather severe-looking woman who was wearing square glasses, exactly the shape of the markings the cat had had around its eyes. She, too, was wearing a cloak, an emerald one. Her black hair was drawn into a tight bun. She looked distinctly ruffled. "How did you know it was me?" she asked. "My dear Professor, I've never seen a cat sit so stiffly." "You'd be stiff if you'd been sitting on a brick wall all day," said Professor McGonagall. "All day? When you could have been celebrating. I must have passed a dozen feasts and parties on my way here." Professor McGonagall sniffed angrily. "Oh, yes. Everyone's celebrating, all right," she said impatiently. "You'd think they'd be a bit more careful, but no. Even the Muggles have noticed something's going on. It was on their news." She jerked her head back at the Dursleys' dark living room window. "I heard it. Flocks of owls shooting stars. Well, they're not completely stupid. They were bound to notice something shooting stars down in Kent. I'll bet that was Deedless Diggle. He never had much sense."
Okay, well, I'm not going to do like Lauren did, but I mean, you can see that she's done that here as well. You get a sense of how the wizarding people feel about Muggles just by the way she reacts. Oh, they're not stupid. Even the Muggles have noticed something's going on. But what I want to point out is we're getting more into the nuts and bolts here. What we've got here is some really good dialogue, some exchanges, and even some almost monologue length dialogue. And never once did they break the dialogue? Well, okay, once or twice with an action beat. Fancy seeing you here, Professor McGonagall. There's no tag. There's no action beat. And we have yet to be really introduced to Professor Dumbledore. So we've got this mysterious man, and yet she doesn't, it's not necessary to define him or to say that he's looking at her or that he turned to face her or that he stood next to her. It's not necessary to say any of that. She didn't clutter any of this up with any of that crap that everybody feels compelled to use. She lets you just stand there and watch them talk without telling you how they're talking, because everybody knows how everybody else talks, the mechanics of it. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, I'm getting mad again. That's no good.
Exactly. So like right in the beginning, fancy seeing you here, Professor McGonagall. He turned to smile at the tabby, but it had gone. That is the only turn, walk, gesture in pretty much like the whole thing. You get a couple sniffs angrily, impatient, and that's it. Everything
Nobody's
else,
looking anywhere. Nobody's staring.
He
Nobody's
uses
breathing.
He uses turn, but we forgive him, and here's why. He turned to smile at the tabby, but it had gone. Instead, he was smiling at a rather severe-looking woman who was wearing square glasses. She turned from a cat into a person.
Yeah.
In that moment, in that split second, magic happened. She transformed into a person. And that was the point of having that sentence there in the first place, is to show that moment of transformation, that magical moment. So
here's a woman that can be a cat. Can they all be cats?
Yeah. No, they can't.
Well, no, I know.
That's exactly right.
But that's what you think. Oh, they could turn into animals. Because you don't know. I mean, it gives you another reason, another little hook to pull you into the story.
Right.
I do want to add, because she does have this he turned, and we harp a lot on the looks, the walks, the turns, all those. It's incredibly subtle, but what she does is she creates the turned into its own action. Like she gives it its action. He turned to smile at the tabby, but it had gone. It creates like an entire picture. But if you didn't have the turned,
it's story. It's not an action beat. It's part of the story.
It's not fancy seeing you, Professor McGonagall. Oh my God, how did I just forget his name?
Dumbledore.
Dumbledore turned to smile at the, so if you had it at Dumbledore smiled to turn to smile at the tabby, period, the tabby had disappeared. Instead, he was smiling at it. It creates a different sensation. It's my hastily put action beat. I don't know if I'm making any more sense. My throat hurts.
You're doing so well.
The point we're trying to make, though, is that you don't have to clutter it up, and especially don't clutter it up with repetitive stuff. I mean, if you have used the word look 742 times in your manuscript, you have a problem. I'm not just being funny. I mean, you have a problem in that if your book is 300 pages long and you've used it 750 times, it's on twice a page. The reader's getting bored. The reader may not know why the reader is getting bored, but they are getting bored, and they might just throw your book down and never pick it up again, and you've lost somebody forever. Why? Because they were standing around looking out windows.
Yeah. It's a go-to kind of phrase. Those action beats, look, pause, hesitate, get up, walk out the door, come back in. These are comfort words that we kind of reach to when we're in the middle of imagining our scene. We're in the middle of trying to make it come alive and trying to get it out on the page, and we just kind of reach for those go-to phrases. But as Ellen wrote on my manuscript, when you reach for them, slap your hand with a ruler. Don't do it.
Yeah, I did actually say that or something like that.
Yeah. So earlier I was saying that there's narrative balance. You want to use different kinds of sentences. You want to use action sentences that say what happened. You want to use description sentences describing a person, describing a thing, describing a setting, describing things. You want to have internal reflections, dialogue, and then the last one is storytelling, like telling us the story. You can pull that back up, Keeling.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And the thing is all of this has to serve the story. You wouldn't bolt a bathtub to your car's engine because you had room for it, because it would be stupid. It's the same thing with your story. Don't bolt a look or a hesitation or a turn or a heartbeat or whatever to your story because you don't know what else to put there and you have room. Don't do it. It's the temptation to put something there has to be choked out and pare it down, fill it with detail that matters.
Right. What does the reader need to understand the story? So just to go back to narrative balance, in this one paragraph, the second paragraph near the top of the page, she's got all 5 kinds of sentences in one paragraph. He turned to smile at the tabby, but it had gone, right? That's storytelling. Instead, he was smiling at a rather severe-looking woman who was wearing square glasses, exactly the shape of the markings the cat had around its eyes. So that would be description. And as we said, kind of action too, because there's that moment of transformation. But this is mostly description.
Can I interject real quick before you continue? 'Cause I just had a thought and I'm going to lose it if I don't say it.
Go ahead.
So, a rather severe-looking woman wearing square glasses, exactly the same shape of the markings the cat had. That is also can be used as a foretelling. So if somewhere in the story, someone sees a tabby cat with square black markings around its eyes, but you could instantaneously go, oh, is McGonagall watching them? And it's just like, ooh, how's this going to play out? So that is a way that you can sort of insert little Easter eggs, that you can put little crumbs of detail. Yeah. Sorry. I just had
Isn't that so much more fun than looking or standing or these other things? Yeah. Sorry. I know I harp, but I see so much of it. And y'all are better than that.
Right. You are. Yep. And if you're not, because we teach this stuff, I teach this stuff, I say this stuff, and then I go ahead and make those same mistakes in my manuscript.
And a totally different part of your brain, though. Like,
and Ellen tells me, were you high when you wrote this? Ask me. So we make these mistakes for a reason. But now that we're aware of them, we can work on them and get better. All right. Okay, so there's description here. She too was wearing a cloak, an emerald one. Her black hair was drawn into a tight bun. She looked distinctly ruffled. And James McCormick pointed that out. He loved that little phrase. She looked distinctly ruffled. And that's someone's opinion, right? That's a reflection. Okay, so she's got all 5 kinds of sentences in one paragraph, and it's all creating a moment together.
And it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
All right. We're coming to the end. I don't think we had any other passages, unless I'm totally forgetting.
No, that's good.
No, that's all I had on that one.
Any last words in chat? Any last questions, comments, side remarks for us to pull up? Shadow says, "Do not fall into the perfectionist trap."
All right, hottie. Yeah, that's right. How many looks did you have on that page?
Thomas says, "I now have Ellen's voice embedded in my head, yelling at me on every rough draft. How many looks did you have on that page?" The word "look," I guess, right? Again.
Yeah.
Do it.
And again, feel free to go into. You can pull a list of words that you should really, really ration. A frequency count sheet. It's in the group notes. So yeah, 103 is too many, James. And you can actually just do a frequency count of your words. It'll make it better. Sorry, it's free. Just go take it, have it. It's yours.
Guy says that this show has been a lot of doo-doo for us to digest. Well, you're welcome. You are welcome.
You have all the doo-doo that you want to, if you do the doo-doos. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming and joining us and hanging out. And, hopefully we made English class fun for you. Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
James. Okay, I can't look at the chat because it's going to distract me. All right. So, yeah, everyone listening, watching, viewing later on, make sure you hit the subscribe button, ding the little bell, so that you know that we're going to have a show, and we're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. We do that. We can give you more. We want to give you more. We want to give you all things, all words, all the time that we can. because we love you and we want to help you to be the best writer that you can be. And it all starts with you and your work and your effort to put into your writing. So if you know you have a lot of looks, if you know your characters are turning a lot, if you're not sure what to do about your dialogue, just go read some books and see what they do. Analyze that and compare it to yours and whatnot. Anyway, I'm rambling and I'm going to stop now because next time we're going to have more reading, writing, and everything in between right here on Keystroke Mediums, The Writer's Journey. Good night, guys.